Hey, it's me, James, and in this video, I'm doing another Kipper Cards by category reading, this time working with a line of 5. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this video. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. So this video is going to be the latest installment of my now ongoing series, which I call Kipper Cards by category. If you're just landing here for the first time, I will be leaving a link in the description box below for the previous installments by including the link to my playlist of this particular series. Okay, so in the last few installments, I was asked to provide some example readings so that those of you who watched the first 5 parts of this series where I talked about the individual categories could actually see how those categories connect or interplay with each other in a reading. Okay, so the first one I did was a 9-card box, and then the one I recently did was a 3-card reading. I actually shared it. It was one I did for myself, but I shared it on camera. And so now in this installment, I'm going to work with a line of 5 because I had been pondering what type of reading I wanted to do next. And I was also waiting for some inspiration in terms of the question and the context. And for me personally, I really believe that when you work with systems like Lenormand, Sibylla, Kipper Cards, as in this particular case, context is everything, right? So context means that you are considering what the situation is that you want to bring to the cards. And then, of course, the question, I'm really big on the question being clear and specific in relation to the context, right? So I really believe that is everything. I think with these systems, vague, general questions really don't work, right? So I was waiting for some inspiration, and I had an idea, which I'll talk about as we move to the table. So now, for those of you who are landing here for the first time, I want to share a little bit about the deck that I'm working with before I move to the table. And I'm working with my own personal Kipper deck. I made this for myself. So the Kipper deck is going to be the Kipper of Himm. This is the title card that comes in the deck. And the reason why I'm using this is because when I created it, I wanted to have a deck that would make it easier for me to remember the categories. So each category is color-coded by the border in the cards, and you'll see that as the reading unfolds. All right, but again, I'm working with the Kipper of Himm. We're going to be doing a line of 5, and so now let's move to the table where I'll talk a little bit more about that context and the question. And here we are with the cards on the table, and like I said in the opening, I'm going to be doing a line of 5 because that is the only type of reading so far that I've done that's relatively small in size. Okay, so I was thinking, like I said in the opening as well, I was thinking about a possible question or scenario to put to the cards so you could see the cards in action. And I had this thought. With the holiday coming up, Christmas holiday that is, I thought about the idea of having the cards ask or answer the question for a seeker or client about returning home for the holidays. So let's give it some more context or some nuance. So let's say we have a man, and let's call him Brad. So Brad has been away from his family, from his hometown for, let's say, maybe 10 years. And let's add some more elements to it. So there's been a bit of maybe family conflict with Brad and maybe one of his parents, let's say, forsake his dad. Okay? So there's that. And as a result of that conflict, he really hasn't been home a lot. He really doesn't stay in touch a lot. So he's asking the question, like, what can he anticipate or what can he expect or what might happen during this Christmas holiday as he returns home. So that is the question and the context, okay? So now the deck you see on the table, for those of you who are new to this series, is that I am working with my deck, my Kipper deck, which is the Kipper of Himm. And I made this deck with the idea that the borders are color-coded by category. And so with that in mind, I received a number of requests asking to see some readings done by category in action with my deck. So that is the reason why I'm focusing on my deck. And also, for those of you who are aware, if you watch the entire series, then you know the makeup of my particular deck. So because of the question and the context, I am removing the primary main person 1 and 2 cards and using the alternative because of the likeness on main person 1, which is me, because I wanted to have my card in my own deck. And so since the question is not about me, I'm removing these two and using the alternatives. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so now, like I said, we have the cards on the table, and now I talked about the context. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to shuffle the question into the cards. So I'm going to take a moment to shuffle the cards. And as I'm shuffling, I'm focusing on the intention and the question. Okay, that's going to be good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the cards away. This is just something that I do. When you're working with the cards, I encourage you to come up with your own shuffling and cutting kind of pattern or practice. Then I'm going to fan the cards out because I always like to do that. And now I'm looking at the fan, and I'm just looking for 5 cards that are getting my attention. So I see these 2 right off. I'm looking some more. Go with this one. I need 2 more. And the final one is here. So these are my 5 cards. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up. I'm going to move that to one side. So now I'm going to lay out the cards in the order that they were drawn. So those are cards 4 and 5 here. The middle card and the first 2 cards. Just looking to see if they are relatively straight. Okay. So now when I work with a line of 5, everybody will work with their lines differently. When I work with a line of 5, I like to look at the focus card first. So now, this is what we call the hinge card or the focus card or the central issue card, yeah? So I like to look at that first, so I'm going to turn that over. And here we have, you cannot make this stuff up. What do we have here in the center? We have the house card, right? So this is about home, it's about family. Now, remember the context. Context is always important when you're doing a line reading or a card reading using Lenormand, Kipper, systems like that, because it's about clear and specific context and questions, and you always come back to the context and the question, yes? All right, so here we have the central issue being home, family, but for Brad, he was asking the question, he wants to know, will he feel comfortable being in his family home, right? The home that he grew up in, right? Will he be comfortable with that? So that is the situation. Now, let's talk about the category. The category is a stop card because it is a red border, right? So it really says, like, at the end of the day, if we just went with the one card, this is the issue, right? This is what Brad really wants to know, full stop, right? And it will break up the other 2 the other cards on either side, right? Because here we have either a break or a period, right? If I go with the idea like the cards are a sentence, then this would be the break or the period, right? And then this picks the story back up, right? Okay, so having said that, let's look at the card opening the lineup, because this is also, for me, like, why is the question being asked, possibly? And here we have the young lady card, right? So now, for me, this could be, and we would have to ask Brad, right, our seeker, if this would fit. The younger lady would be someone younger than him, right? So first we might ask, does he have a younger sister, in the family, right? Remember, this is the context or the situation. So is this a younger sister, a younger family member? I'm going to go more with the idea here that since this is about Brad feeling comfortable, I would go with the idea like, will he have a good time? Will he have fun? Right? Because for me, the young lady card is a card that doesn't just represent a person, could represent a theme, right? So some of the themes for her would be beauty, fun, creativity, Yes? So I'm going to go like, will he have a good time? That's really what he wants to know. Will returning home provide him comfort, and will he feel so comfortable that he'll have a good time? Right, so now she's looking or facing this card, so let's take a look here. This is between her and house. Now theft. Okay, so now here we have a cause and effect card. The yellow border is a cause and effect card. And I should say, all my people cards have purple borders if you're just joining the series, right? Okay, so now cause and effect, right? So the way I read the cause and effect card, especially with the theft card, this is the cause, right? So now here we have the theft, or the theft is about loss, or it's about a takeaway. I'm looking at the image and I'm going like something that's done in the cover of night, like so he's running away. The thief is running away from the scene of the crime, right? So he wouldn't get caught or wouldn't get detected, right? So he's making his escape. So for me, it would be that this card is showing that Brad actually maybe just left home suddenly, without being detected, kind of just made his escape. Right? I don't think it's about theft necessarily, but I think he about a getaway, making an escape, that kind of thing. And then the effect, so he could have more fun in his life. Maybe there's something about why he left that is still unresolved, right? It could almost be like, for me, it could be like the thief returning to the scene of the crime, yeah? Because maybe he feels like he couldn't have a whole lot of fun, or it wasn't a whole lot of fun growing up in that environment, which is why he took off. Right? I'm not going to read this as actual theft, but it may explain the cause behind his escape from his hometown, right? Because I set that up in the context, right? He left home and he hasn't been home in quite some time. Yeah? Okay. So now let's take a look at the other side of the line. And here we have, so look at this. So now here on the other side of house, we have prison, another stop card, right? So it could just be a matter of there's going to be maybe some sort of lull here, some sort of pause. Prison could be like, I'm feeling trapped, yeah? So it could be isolation, confinement, limitation, restriction, a sense of feeling trapped, right? For Brad, it could be a reminder as to why he left, right? Being back is going to remind him why he left to begin with, right? And it may be a matter of him trying to find moments where he can be by himself, right? Remember, this is about isolation. So are there going to be moments in time while he's home that he can pull away and be by himself and make it a little more tolerable? But I'm looking at this and it's making me feel like he's going to be reminded of all the things that made him want to leave home to begin with. And I will say, so far, notice that what has not appeared. Brad hasn't appeared, the card that would signify Brad, main person one, and the father card, because I said in the context that he left mostly because of his dad, right? So we don't have the good gentleman card that would signify father, right? But we don't know what's behind this card yet. So now let's take a look at that. So in the end, how it will turn up. Okay, so now here we have cause and effect. Right, so here we already know at the end we have gloomy thoughts, one of the more challenging cards in the deck, right? So gloomy thoughts represents negative mindset, pessimism. The outcome doesn't look really good here, right? And so we have another cause and effect card. So now the gentleman on gloomy thoughts is looking this way. So this is the effect, right? We don't have a card back here for the cause. But the effect would be feeling like I'm in prison, right? So Brad's going to feel like he's going to feel trapped. He's going to feel stuck. He's going to feel isolated. He's going to feel like he's in prison, right? So overall, we have 2 stop cards, 2 cause and effect cards. This doesn't really look all that wonderful for Brad. But now here's the thing about readings and especially with challenging cards when they turn up. He's being given information beforehand, so he can choose to react and respond to things as they present themselves when he returns home differently because he's gotten some form of a heads up, yeah? So I'm just curious, because of the cause and effect card at the end, what is going to be the cause? So I'm going to take the deck in hand, have the deck in hand. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to fan the cards out. And hopefully you can see a little bit of the fan above. You can. All right. And now I'm looking at the fan. I'm going to pick one card to represent the cause. And because I don't want to readjust the camera to widen it, I'm going to put the cause underneath gloomy thoughts. So now let's take a look at the card I've chosen to represent the cause. Now if I widen the view so you could see it, actually it would go behind gloomy thoughts. So let's see, this is the cause. And look at this, get together. So get together is a card that represents hanging out. It represents social functions. It represents, get-togethers, right? So here we already know the cause behind the feeling imprisoned, feeling trapped or restricted is actually the get-together. Yeah? You cannot make this stuff up. This is why I love doing these types of readings on camera. Okay, so for Pandas Rover and Harlem Nights and all the other people who asked to see examples of the Kipper cards by category in action, I hope this was helpful. And I also just want to say thank you for those of you who chose to weigh in on my question about how to present readings in the future. Did you want to see single examples per video? Did you want to see multiple examples per video? And the overwhelming view was to see one example per video. And so I appreciate everybody who weighed in on that, and this is for you. So I'm Jameson Mitchell. I'm wrapping up. Thank you so much for sharing this time and space with me, and I look forward to seeing you here again as we look at the Kipper cards by category in action at a later point in time. So until then, take care and have a wonderful day.